Oscar, I met you at early days, I think when the Sora Alpha groups were formed. That was a really nice dinner, and some of us were lucky to be in that group. And I remember that was its own sort of gathering that was curated by the community teams at Sora, which represented some idea of early artists and early filmmakers in the space. But I think as we today get to dig into your biography, it becomes very clear why. And you obviously have a traditional kind of BAFTA filmmaker profile, but I actually double checked on my sort of AI research tools, just how we get to qualify your Guinness Book record of the first AI film. Maybe you'll get to tell us how you qualify it, but in a lot of ways, that's what your sort of work represents. There's this first foray, and I would love you to introduce us to that journey of yours. And also, it's been so great following you in our group chats. And you had like kind of an epic moment a month or so ago that got a good chunk of emoji likes and responses. But whether that's also a natural flow of where you're at with, whether it's because you were early or because you're like any of us that are all here exploring these possibilities with these tools, just what is your perspective now? And what are you doing now? And I guess, how would you position what's happening to all of us? But really excited for folks to meet you today. I'm going to go ahead and make you a bigger face for everybody to see. Here we go. But welcome, and welcome to Gen Talks.
My face is already bigger from dental surgery a couple of days ago. So thank you for the extra expansion. It's terrifying to look at. Isn't it fascinating that we used to talk and not be able to see ourselves? And now, since 5 years or so, every time you're talking to somebody, if it involves a screen, it's normalized now. It's like you're holding up a little mirror the entire time you're talking to somebody where you can see yourself. That's very odd. We are changing all of the rules very fast without deciding why exactly. Anyway, I just wanted to check. So we've got 38 people here. I have no idea how many of the folks in this room would have seen Sunspring or any of the other films that I made back in 2016, 2017, 2018. So these were the first films ever written by artificial intelligence. We couldn't find any other sooner ones to answer your question about like, why is it the first? It's just the first time we did that. So Morgane or Morgana?
Morgan.
Okay,
Yes,
Morgane. So you have seen them. Anyone else? Just throw up a thumbs up or something to let me know if anyone else has seen it, or are we just looking? Am I in a room full of? So we got 1, 2. Okay, pretty small number for 38. Should we watch a little bit of Sunspring to just get a vibe?
I think it's great to get a taste of it, and again, that it was part of a sequence.
It was.
Where you can explore. So as much as we want to get a taste, and we'll share the links. I shared your sort of a profile link that has a lot of it in there. So please let people follow up. But we want to hear from you today.
Quit and reopen later. I'm trying to work out how to share this right now. I have not also shared tab audio, not had to do this.
On the bottom of your Chrome screen, there's a thing that looks like a laptop.
Oh, no, I see it. I see it. It's telling me it won't, it's looking for full disk access. That's worrying. Let's find out if this works.
I can also open up links on my side.
Yeah.
I'll do that while we're here.
What we got? Is that working?
Yeah, we're great.
Okay.
And that's a tab. That's a tab, right?
Yes. So I can go over to
Perfect.
Here. All right. This is working. Well done, Google. Okay. So as you can see, 9 years ago, we're in 2016, and just a little bit of introduction. Every year I would do this 48-hour film challenge where you get 48 hours, which are probably a bit like Gen Jams actually, where you've got 48 hours to conceive of, shoot, edit, and deliver a movie, usually 5 minutes. I would do the Sci-Fi London one. So they were sci-fi themed. And in the run up to this one, myself and Ross Goodwin, who I met at NYU, he was at the Arts Technology Program, ITP. And I'd got off at the wrong floor one time when I was there at the graduate film program. And the first thing I bumped into was a big wall of robot dildos that followed you around the room, which is the kind of thing they make at ITP. Just very strange art, electronic art. And then I met Ross, who was even stranger than a wall of dildos, actually. He's a delightful person. He was tinkering with early AI stuff at the time. He's Annie Leibowitz's nephew. And one of the things he'd done as part of his photography practice was make a camera out of an old bellows camera where you point it at something, press a button, and instead of a picture coming out, it writes a poem about what it was looking at. And this was like early LSTM RNN stuff, long short-term memory recurrent neural network. So before the LLMs and transformer systems of today, which meant it was a lot more like autocomplete on your phone. I'm just going to show you some of maybe the beginning of this, because I got him to train one of those things on a bunch of sci-fi screenplays, never been done before, first time a machine wrote a screenplay. I watched it boil out of nothing in the same way as when you watch Midjourney boil a picture. It was like boiling a page of screenplay. And yeah, here's a little bit of the results. You guys hear okay?
Yeah, everything's perfect.
They give you a bunch of the prompts every time you do challenges, which I'm sure you do at Jam Jam. That's screenplay. Yeah, it's like not the first AI movie, it's the first film written entirely by an. Gave the actors, we just ran it beautified. Have I understood?
In a future with mass unemployment, young people are forced to sell blood. It's something I can do.
You should see the boy and shut up. I was the one who was going to be 100 years old.
I saw him again. The way you were sent to me, that was a big, honest idea. I am not a bright light.
I have to go to the skull. I don't know.
So some of the things you're seeing them do are the action description. In the script, there was something there about having the tablet scan the skull in his face, or I can't remember. It was strange sci-fi terminology. I'm not going to show the whole thing. I am going to skip through to something at the end where Elizabeth, pardon me, she had a long monologue that popped up that actually came from the fact that we also trained on a best screenplays of all time model, as well as a sci-fi screenplay model. And it was just dialogue. So it wrote her this speech. And we did a bunch of work together on the day. We took 30 minutes to just really go in on the intentions and so on behind it. And this is
Ship. Like a big. There's the situation with me and the light on the ship. He was trying to stop me. He was like a baby, and he was gone. I was worried about it. And even if he would have done it all, he couldn't come anymore. I didn't mean to be a virgin. He was weak. I thought I'd change my mind. He was crazy to take it. It was a long time ago. He was a little late. I was going to be a moment. I just wanted to tell you that I was much better than he did. I had to stop him. I couldn't even tell. I didn't want to hurt him. I'm sorry, I don't like him. I can go home and be so bad. But I love it. And I can get him all the way out here and find a square and go to the game with him. And she doesn't show up. Maybe I'll check. But I'm going to see him when he gets to me. He looks at me. He throws me out of his eyes. And then he says he'll go to bed.
okay. So I haven't watched that in a long time, by the way. That was a funny experience. So that was one of the pieces of the process that kind of really lit something in me. The way that Elizabeth, the actress, found something in that through our work together that meant a huge amount to her. And then it was a year later and this went semi-viral and so on. And we decided to do it again. I don't know how much of this one it's appropriate to show because we want to talk as well. But let me see how I stop sharing this tab. I was a little worried because there was a possible writer strike coming up. I'm in the WGA and the AI thing was starting to bubble now. It was like 2017, people were starting to hear about it and get a bit worried about it, some of them. Our virality had been a part of that. I'd been all over the world talking about the damn thing. There had been things that were more viral. That was like, I've forgotten his name, the guy that did, I force-fed an AI a bunch of commercials for Olive Garden and it wrote this one, most of which were fake, but they were, as in a human had written them to sound a bit like an AI. And they did because we'd been doing this sort of thing and a few others had by that point. So anyway, I was getting a bit paranoid about it. And so when we made this next one, let me find, how do I come back to sharing?
Yeah, same little laptop with an arrow.
Well, yeah, there it is. It's no game. This was number 2. So again, for the 48-hour film challenge, which I should just say in passing, the previous one, we entered that with there were a bunch of human filmmakers, of course, had done theirs. One of the judges said, was it the only thing that would want to watch this is another computer? One of the judges said, I'll vote for them if they never do it again, or promise never to do it again. So with this one, I wanted to address some of this worry. And this time I collaborated with the AI, which is to say we created a bunch of models and then used them in specific contexts. So we made it about a writer's strike in the face of AI 6 years before that actually, because I was wondering if it was going to. So here are our writers and they are ready for their strike. They're meeting with this producer here.
Game films will no longer be accepting, as fair game films will no longer be accepting the terms of your little clubs.
All movies need writers.
Agreed. No doubt you've both seen this before.
A future with mass and young.
Sunspring was written by an
Yeah.
artificial intelligence named Benjamin, resulting in almost 1 million hits.
Oh yeah, Benjamin. The machine named itself Benjamin. When we submitted the first film, we told them how it was made, of course. And we discovered that some of the other films that were doing an online vote to see who the audience favorite was for the 48-hour, we could see that they were cheating. They were getting like thousands of votes an hour, clearly click farming using some pay-per-click service or something like that. So Ross rewired our supercomputer so that it voted for itself 36,000 times an hour. And thus we won. But also we called up and we admitted to this and we said, look, we're just trying to blow up the other people cheating. And so Louis, who runs the festival, decided to interview our computer at the award show, giving it a special award. And during that interview, which it was doing, it was generating dialogue in the same way as it generated dialogue for the screenplay. It said something like, the burning feathers are still falling to the floor. The children will see your face. My name is Benjamin, which seemed like a good enough thing to call him, which is why he's being called.
Well, I don't think so.
So we decided to evolve Benjamin, and now we don't need you anymore. You forgot your T's. For Sunspring, Benjamin was trained on 80s and 90s sci-fi. Cute. But then we thought, why not train him on something more specific? Didn't we, David? Activate HuffBot.
Well, pick me up. Dangerous world of a man who does not exist. Hey, put a little button on that panel and do the controls. Michael, to decrease speed, I'm sorry, I can't make it.
So if it's not obvious, we made a model of all of Hasselhoff's performances from the 80s and 90s, and then it spat out the results. And what's interesting is as soon as he heard it, he just became Michael Knight from Knight Rider, which was an incredible experience for me who grew up watching that. Which, by the way, doesn't that fold into all this? The cars are now driving themselves. There are watches you can talk to. Soon we'll be talking to our watch to talk to the car, which will drive to pick us up, which is exactly what happened in the 80s. One of the reasons I'm surfacing that is not just because it's funny and entertaining, but like to say to everybody here who you are now enabled to take what's in your imagination, and with almost nobody giving you permission anymore, just conjure it onto screens and get people to look at it. Like, you know that this is interesting, but like somebody did that in the 80s. Man driving car, talk to robot. And now we've built that. So just like really hold this in your hands for a second. Like when you put things on screens and show them to lots of people, you are conjuring and seeding and fertilizing actual futures, or you might be. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. I would urge you, he says, maybe slightly patronizingly, but I don't know, keep it in mind, in my view. So we did a bunch more. There's an Aaron Sorkin bot in here, which I like a lot. Golden Age Hollywood. Hang on, let me skip forward to one of those.
Shakespeare is more than just infinite monkeys typing.
Of course. That's not how AI works.
That's my joke.
So obviously I want to
This
make room
is
for anybody that has
impossible.
questions
Golden Age Hollywood.
or chime in the chat, please.
Yeah, throw stuff in, please. I don't know. You get the idea. I don't need to play these, actually. They talk
No,
like...
obviously this is a short format to be able to really appreciate the films. That's why I wanted to make sure the links were available to everybody. And yeah, just mindful of, I think probably about 10 minutes we want to shift to Chandan and Hardeep, but I look, question Q&A and questions in the chat as always, everybody. One thing just to go off your comment just now, not to fully unpack it, but I think some people say that even the moon landing was a product of somebody writing into a science fiction book. In a lot of ways, there's always been this relationship between arguably amazing things that science and technology are capable of and how humans then wield it. Often inspired, like you say, it's incepted in some way by storytelling. So I think that's a really astute point. And to think about the volume of sci-fi shorts that are being made right now, it's either exciting or terrifying of all the different things that are going to come.
We're doing hyperstition. We're always doing hyperstition or in some way predicting the future into existence. Without showing long clips, I'll just quickly visit the two others. Irrelevant, because now a year later, we move into slightly more machine cinema territory, and that I decided I wanted to generate the visuals, which hadn't been possible at that point. But it's still only 2018. And so what that looks like is deep fakes. So we got the original Sunspring cast. We trained what images. We found a load of public domain films, and then as you can see,
They wanted to call it Adam. Seriously.
Sure. But this one we can skip over as we were starting to try and do that stuff. Year later, 2019, Robert Downey Jr. calls and is, hey, we want to do a documentary about what you're doing. Can you do Sunspring all over again so we can film you making it? Actually, no, we don't want to do that. But what I will do, because it's Robert Downey Jr., is train a model on sci-fi and action movie screenplays. We had access to GPT-2, the early version of ChatGPT. So using a much more sophisticated LLM autocomplete, we did something which we never released. And the reason we never released it is that, and I could show you this maybe at the end of this, or I could leave it for you to show at the end of the whole talk. We trained it on action movie screenplays. We turned it on and it spat out 400 pages of white hot misogyny just immediately, which is to say, with no other fine tuning. It was fine tuning, not training. It was like Batman in a cage of prostitutes. Superman beats up Lois Lane, makes out with her and beats her up again. The original TV Lois Lane agreed to make one of these, but then all of the lawyers were like, oh my God, please don't. It was fair use, but Warner Brothers will torture you forever, so don't. And so instead of that, we picked a sequence I called Bobo and Girlfriend, because there's a guy called Bobo and a woman whose name is literally Girlfriend. He repeatedly calls her girlfriend. That's her name in the script. And it's a kind of low-key, like, assault, but he thinks they're having fun and she's terrified. It's very weird. So I'll leave that for you to look at. But the whole point of that, and to link back to what I was describing earlier on, is these models that we've got, that we're using to make stuff, to put in the world that might affect the world. If it were, like, if you get what you're really looking for and lots of people look at it, then it affects the world. And we have robot army movies, and Elon's building one, right? That's, and referred to it as so. So whatever goes in, you've discussed this a million times with other people who are like, it's stealing stuff and we're just recycling. It's a rehash. As much as like most of that is a narrow view of things, the part that we're in a feedback loop with ourselves and we speak into something that then makes more of itself, was already true, has been true for the whole history of human creativity. And yet this accelerates it, and it takes those defaults, like the default of the sci-fi screenplays I put into Sunspring, having a lot of questions about what was going on, because that happens in sci-fi. Those defaults are emerging from the models always, and will continue to do. And so being in relationship with that, I think, is very key, like paying attention to it and seeing how you are being steered, which is cool as well. You can have real fun with it, follow a path. But yeah, I think it's one of the things I like to flag is this feedback loop stuff.
I think that was your comment in the chat that I remember that, and I appreciate you bringing it together.
Right.
Look, it's a powerful statement. I don't think artists, and especially what we might call Hollywood artists, that I think typically still live within this kind of semi-regulated pathway of what gets greenlit and what that's some studio's brand. And there are patterns there that, as you appreciate what you're saying, at some point have an impact on society and what we all invent or get excited about. It's interesting to really think about that, of what is the other impact of this besides economic, besides copyrights and all these things that are also part of the discussion. What's the impact on society and culture, right?
And the future. And by the way, like your Hollywood example is very good. Due to those feedback loops in the industrial sense, not the technological sense, you go from Rock Hudson to Chris Hemsworth, and literally millions of teenage boys with body dysmorphia as a result, because in a feedback loop with what we think people want, that gets more intense, and eventually the intensity becomes potentially damaging, which has happened with social media algorithms in different ways in terms of people's attitudes to each other in the world. Being intentional about one superstition is enormously worthwhile, especially as the tools become more powerful in the way that everybody here knows that they are, presumably having played with them. And then the point in the chat that you're referring to, that rant, takes that, but also then frames it under, what did I call it? An autopoiesis entity, which is I think the phrase is something like this. If you thought that an algorithm designed to make you stay interested with small bits of text, with 128 character bits of text, has already made people go insane, then wait for what happens when the algorithm is automatically self-shifting its output to keep somebody interested at the bandwidth of video, the bandwidth of what emotionally and psychologically and physiologically happens to you when you're exposed to sound and picture that are changing in particular ways. Because if its purpose is to enthrall you in the way that text algorithms have been, like the idea of not seeing mass addiction that's very powerful and really transforms people, it would be counterintuitive to think that wouldn't happen. So we're here. This is the room full of the humans that are like, cool, how can I human this? What is the piece of you? And you'll notice that the bits that were most interesting to me, I got Hasselhoff to do one of those speeches as well at the end of that film. And he did a speech about his dad, even though it was a bunch of generative stuff, but he made it about his dad. And he cried, it helped him. And he said, in some way, these things there's a lot of traps.
For what it's worth, I just shared the rants from the WhatsApp group.
Oh, you've got it? Oh my God. You said
you think it's in the chat right now. You can just and I'll send it to you as well. But I think it captures the spirit of what you're saying. And I think that is a really fascinating way to navigate this as a filmmaker, that you're not just here expressing yourself, you're really conscious of this as an impact and a historical impact of why storytelling inspires and affects so much. And I think it's really interesting thought experiment that you're throwing to everybody here is what else is happening here of what features are we spawning on purpose or incidentally. I can also delete this if there's anything you didn't want to see. I thought this was a great comment. You put a lot of thought into it. And I think obviously I can tell that we could spend a longer windows actually spending time watching your films and hearing this. And maybe we have a part 2 where we get to continue to think about this. And I know I'm not probably making enough space for people in their Q&A, but I actually think the spirit of what you're saying really connects with our next 2 guests. So I guess if anybody has further questions, please use the chat and obviously reach out to Oscar directly. And we really should do a part 2 because I love the ideas you're bringing up. But I think this idea of what happens when more storytelling is happening really connects with what I think Shonda and Hardeep are very responsible for. Big thanks to you. A big round of applause for Oscar. Thank you for sharing your story with us and obviously being part of our community. And we want to have you back. But I'm going to bring up our friends. You guys consider yourself SF residents these days, or how would you describe your residency?
Yeah, I'm currently in SF. Chandan's currently in India, but he'll be in SF as soon as well.
Okay.
Probably in a
Well,
month or yeah.
Look, welcome Hardeep and Shonda. I've officially made you the giant faces on the screen now. But Oscar, we've given you and your dental adventures break. But look, thanks to Min for obviously being ear to the ground on SF and his stopping grounds there, and really continuing to share well beyond what we might call this sort of Hollywood ripple effect of the effects that people like us here in LA are feeling, but also seeing just what an interesting dynamic is emerging globally and in a lot of ways because of the epicenter that SF is to this moment.
Well,
You guys
to clarify,
go ahead, man, please go ahead.
to clarify, it had nothing to do with SF. It had everything to do with Twitter, because what Hardeep and Chandan were doing went viral on Twitter. Had nothing to do with SF at all. I was just like, oh my God, these guys are doing a film festival. Holy shit, everybody's talking about it. And so here we are. And I had,
Well,
I had to
and
reach
maybe
out.
do you want to make the intro since you connected in person?
And that's fine. I think they should intro themselves. What they did was amazing. I highly recommend just following both of them on Twitter. Can you guys drop your Twitter even on here? And I think people should honestly go through and see what you guys did, and maybe you guys can show some stuff. But yeah, just multiple people that we know in our network flew out to Mumbai to attend. But yeah, I would love to hear it from you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, really historic moment that you guys are both really responsible for it. I'd love you to introduce yourselves.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having us on here. And also thanks for having Oscar as well. But I was just listening for the past half an hour. I really like his takes on just how it just lets you like really just make whatever you want with just your imagination. It's like taking down so many of the barriers that's existed historically for such a long time. And that's why I think transitions really well into the event itself, like why we hosted it. Really like a big part of it was just like showing the world just how much democratized storytelling is becoming and how it's not something to be scared of, but to actually just like empower production houses, to empower people. And yeah, it was really exciting. That was like really the thesis of the event. As per like our interests personally, Chandan and I, we come from tech backgrounds. I built a company in the past that was a community X tech company where we had a bunch of people come in this accelerator program, almost it's called the residency, where people would come build their companies and then get venture capital funding after having a demo day. Now we're building this, and with Chandan, I'll let him introduce himself too, but he's building this company called Podcast Circle, and take it away, Chandan.
Yeah, 100%. So, Oscar, it was beautiful listening to you, man. Genuine respect to everything that you've done. Incredible work. Fred, thank you so much. And yeah, everyone who's here, thanks a lot. To give a quick introduction, as Hardeep was mentioning, previously I've been building this company called Podcast Circle. Before that, yeah, we come from solid tech backgrounds where previously I was the founding team of this company called Blue Learn, where we raised 4 million during college. And then it's like a period when we had so much capital, but we didn't know what to do with it, like just out of college, just during college. So we built that for 3 years, built a community of 250,000 people. And one thing that's been their core in us is how can we help more people with just the network, right? Talent is everywhere, but not capital or opportunities. So that's what we wanted to democratize. So that's exactly the point where Hardeep and I have met. So Hardeep, I think you should talk a little bit about LocalHost.
Yeah. So after starting our previous ventures, Chandan with his podcast circle, me with the residency, the residency, for example, was funded and backed by Sam Altman, the person who made ChatGPT. And after working on those two ventures individually ourselves, and now we're working on this company called LocalHost. LocalHost is essentially a venture capital firm where we invest in other young people building companies, working on films, building media projects, while at the same time, we're also hosting a bunch of events and media projects. We call this like the community arm of LocalHost. This film festival was like a part of this venture arm, part of our company, LocalHost, where we just wanted, honestly, where none of us come from film backgrounds. We're just like very excited about the potential of AI filmmaking. We wanted to show the world that how far it's gotten, seeing just like how much each model just keeps improving month by month. There's, like we talked in the earlier of this conversation, there's 19 models that dropped overnight. I think keeps happening. And yeah, I think there's been like a really big gap between people who are who were filmmakers, people who were at these production houses who want to implement AI versus people who are actually at the forefront of making AI video gen and actually having that be pushed in the industry. So we really just wanted to bridge that because we saw that gap really vividly. First, we hosted like an event in Bangalore in India to just check out if there's even a demand for such an event, if people are able to generate something of substance in a short amount of time. And once there was something of substance, there was demand of sponsors who wanted to fund this. There were people who wanted to make AI films and experiment on this. We really just took that to the moon and just took that to a bigger scale in Mumbai. So that's how all of that came along.
To give a little bit understanding of what happened in Mumbai is like the bedrock of Indian cinema. In India, people literally live on cinema because they adore it way too much, like a lot. And we were like, on one side, there is AI coming up, all guns blazing towards AI cinema. And then the other side, there is the heritage era of cinema, Indian way. So we want to, as Hardeep was saying, we want to bridge this exact gap. So the story of how we organized it happened all in the public. So that was quite fun, like where every hurdle that we had, we were putting a post and then the community was literally coming together and then helping us out. We've organized in this 120-year-old property called the Royal Opera House, which is incredibly hard to get a slot in. And in fact, one of the owners of the property was sold off by the idea that no one has done an AI film festival for the first time ever before. And that too for the idea that a bunch of like a 20-ish year old something are trying to do that, sold him off in a much grander way. Over the next 25 days, whatever happened from there on, that is roughly 3 weeks, was something a hell lot of a story. We ended up raising $150,000. Some of the largest companies from SF, from India have put in their capital. Trust more than anything, it's the trust for us to do something at a scale that the country has never seen before. So Hardik, you want to talk about the robots and the Rolls Royce, the Phantom, which is just there because why not?
Yeah, it's quite fun. Like we just wanted to not only make the event have like amazing AI films, but the entire idea of it was to like showcase and package it in a way that the public cares. So we like had a robot at the, like a humanoid robot at the venue. We had a Rolls Royce just sitting there just for its for the grandiose of it. We had a red carpet, not just for the celebrities, but for every single person who came as an attendee at the event. We had a panel by some of the biggest filmmakers in India, people who had gone on to be Emmy nominated, Oscar nominated, and like a judge panel full of those folks. So it's quite fun, and happy to share if there's any more specific questions as well. And I can also drop our website where we can actually maybe show one of the films that people might be interested in.
Before that, I was thinking to show the after movie to give them a picture of what all happened.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think Min was saying something.
Yeah, I was gonna ask because as I watched it transpire over Twitter, it was interesting because there was so much. It was like there was like anti and pro at the same time, which I've experienced a lot. Right, just when I tweet, I get death threats sometimes because I like support AI. So I was curious, what was your experience of that? Who were the people that were anti? Were there people from Bollywood who were coming out, or was it just random social media accounts? That's my first question. And then the second question, I guess, is how was it then received when you did it and afterwards? Has there been a shift, or is it the same environment? Because what we've seen in LA and Hollywood is like that anti is still there, right? It's still Guillermo del Toro literally again said fuck AI. I don't know how many times he has to say that every month, and James Cameron is coming out and saying we respect real actors and stuff. So that still is present, even though James Cameron is also on the board of stability. So it's ironic, and at the same time, we are seeing Matthew McConaughey and other people who are using AI, et cetera, or licensing their likeness, or Ron Howard. So we are starting to see different camps. So I'm curious what it is like there from your vantage. First, like what it was like to watch it transpire on social media, and then like where do you see it now moving?
Yeah, for sure. I think it was really interesting to see like all the spirals go off on social media. There's, like you said, like sometimes you support on social media, like you support AI, you get death threats. We got so many death threats off of like social media, lost account. But at one point, we are just like, the more threats we were getting, that probably means we're doing great on marketing. So let's just keep going. So we just celebrated those. And at the same time, actually, like even apart from the social media side of things, of like away from Twitter, there are a lot of backlash even from Bollywood. One of the biggest critics in India for Bollywood, who had previously like interviewed, what's his name I'm forgetting, the director of Interstellar, or Christopher Nolan. She interviewed Christopher Nolan like a couple of weeks ago, and she like made comments about the AI Film Festival we were hosting, just saying that like it's just degrading what the film industry is supposed to be like. There are a couple of biggest directors of India, like there's this director called Anurag Kashyap, who's made some of the biggest hits in Indian cinema and some of the biggest classics. And he has like very similar stance of just looking down on AI. So lots of backlash in that front. Even more, I think we saw this even with trying to get the judges for the festival and trying to get the panelists for the festival, where like we'd reach out to people and initially they'd be interested because they don't want to quote unquote miss the train of AI. Like they want to be like updated with where the industry is going as well. But the moment we'd like they'd agree and we take their picture and put it up that we're going to be hosting a panel for this person at the event, and they'd get backlash. There are many times, there are like two different really big celebrities. One who was like a really big actor in India who everyone knew. One who was one of the biggest directors in India. Both of them backed out last minute because of the backlash.
The other producer.
Sorry?
The other producer as well.
Yeah. So that happened multiple times. And yeah, I think like the biggest thing we realized was these people who were backing on were making excuses that had something come up. But when we'd have our other panelists talk to them who were much closer to us, like they'd reveal that they just didn't want to associate with AI in public. But at the same time, they'd be the same people who'd like afterwards ask us for intros to the AI filmmakers who were making these AI films because they didn't want to be behind in the industry. They didn't want their production company to be behind an AI. And many of them were like making in-house AI film studios of their own. So it was quite like many of our tweets were actually around this of just the hypocrisy we were seeing in the industry. But yeah, I'll leave it at that. And yeah, happy to jump on anything else.
No, yeah.
We had Vinay's comment. Yeah, then please go on.
No, go ahead. And I don't want to interrupt your showing the video either, because I think that's interesting. But
Okay, yeah, cool. I forgot about the video. Just a second, let me pull it up. It is here. Hardeep, give me a confirmation if you can hear it clearly.
That's us. A bunch of 20-year-olds in front of a packed audience of A-list actors, filmmakers, creators, media companies, multimillionaires, and many more. But how did this all happen? A month ago, we came together in a Google Meet call. No investors, no blueprint, no one to back us, but a shared dream. And now, just a month later, we hosted India's largest AI film festival at the Royal Opera House, screening 15 AI films made by the best AI filmmakers in India and the world. All films made in 5 days, with some of the biggest names in Bollywood attending the screening.
Tanmay is an influencer, comedian, actor.
Just stop. Please stop.
And he's quite a few
It
things.
started with influencer, bro. We wanted to show the world where we think it's headed. A future where young creators like us get to shape and benefit from these technologies, even when the industry calls it a gimmick. We saw hypocrisy up close in the past 1 month. The same people who dismiss AI in public ask for intros to our filmmakers in private. But that's fine, because the real supporters, people who embrace storytelling, they showed up. The way to work with the fear is not to run away from it, but to actually understand it and then find your relationship with AI. They trusted us, and we'll never forget. We spent the last 3 days surrounded by the people who are delusional with the belief that something good would come out. And that led to 15 beautiful films. It's an entire community of artists leveraging technology to showcase their art and stories.
When you basically put a prompt, the AI might go here and there and might give you something completely different, but that hallucination can completely spark a different idea altogether.
During the whole process, we learned a lot of new things. We definitely didn't know what we were doing. We spent hours and days making sure we could bring the same opportunities to the best undiscovered talent globe.
One of the story felt so real that I had to ask someone, is this really AI?
The emotion that was there in that particular that film. So I like
That's what kept us going.
So yeah, that was a gist of everything that happened in the last few weeks. Yeah. Rob, you have something to ask. Please go ahead.
If someone had a question, they can jump in.
I just want to say that was really nicely put together little documentaries. I'm curious, did you guys edit that? Did somebody you work with edit that? Because there's a filmmaker at work there, which is lovely.
Yeah, we have this team, a bunch of creators like of our age, just friends who are working with us throughout the period of the 3 weeks period. Every creative is made by two people called Dion and Vidhi. They were working together as a team. And then now they own a studio now they started a studio called the Project Carnival. Yeah, great talent.
I think the thing that struck me when we first spoke, Hardeep, was just again, there's just an inherent myopia, whichever bubble any of us are in. LA is particularly impenetrable as a bubble, but of its own reality, I guess is what I mean. But the fact that this was like just a bat signal you put up, hey guys, we're doing this. The attention it got, the credible attention it got in terms of industry people that in some ways here in LA, it's taken a couple of years for people to slowly trickle in and almost allow themselves to be curious in public about this technology, the way that there was actual Bollywood sort of established talent in attendance. And then the quality of the films by, frankly, a generation of filmmakers that I'm not even sure have had time to go through sort of the paying dues process of working in the industry and learning the craft, which for better or for worse is it's its own statement of what an event you created. And I think when we hear this sort of democratization narrative, it's a powerful thing to really see in action of how it self-curates, it self-represents, it itself shows up. I don't know. These are things that I took away. And I'm curious, what's been the ongoing discussion, the idea to do more of these? What did you take away?
Yeah, I think our biggest learnings was definitely like just seeing that with like how in Silicon Valley, there's this term called product market fit, where like the market cares about your product and it takes its certain time for a product to reach that product market fit where you have that hockey stick growth. I think like we have organized events in the past, we have made media, we had made videos, and like we've definitely tried to understand virality, but it's always a hit or miss. Now I feel like with this event, we realized just like the product market fit that we got for this was just like exponential. Like we've organized events in the past. We have put out these like videos, like these after movies that people end up caring about and launch videos of what the event is going to be around. But with this, like since our very first video that we put out, granted it was a good video, but still like it got us a title sponsor. Our second video got us in conversation with a couple of other title sponsor. Many of our judges came to just like Twitter solely, like where people were messaging them that you should come to this event. Like the world just like instantly cared, which is very rare to see of that product market fit to be that strong. So I think that was very beautiful to see. And I feel like that also makes us optimistic that this space is only going to grow. There's so many people, like basically all of the participants that came to the event, very few of them ended up going, I think, back to their jobs. Many of them just ended up taking contracts. Many of them got job offers. Many of them are in talks with like Netflix, Google, all those folks. And like really everyone ended up going on a different trajectory. And I feel like with more advances in AI filmmaking, with more advances in AI video production and these video generation model, things are only going to keep going more in that direction, and makes us very optimistic to see where the industry ends up going. And we ourselves, even as like folks in this community, where we end up taking it as, because It's just people like us at the end of the day who are hosting these events and like making the ecosystem bigger. And with LocalHost, our goal right now in the coming years to definitely organize at the very least 2 or 3, or like at the very least 2 of these AI film festivals, maybe 3. We're thinking of doing one in LA sometime and doing one in Europe, and then maybe another one in India, like at the same time as the Mumbai Film Festival. So we're thinking of doing more of these. We're also thinking of making like with a couple of these directors and these biggest producers in India, we're in talks to create almost like a online course to teach people AI filmmaking through these leading people in the industry who are amazing storytellers, and pairing them up with people who are like really young, who are amazing technologists. So there's the best of both worlds there. And like starting that with a small cohort of 40 people as an exclusive course in India. So those are a couple of things on the horizon right now as per AI filmmaking.
Super cool. Obviously, some interest, at least from one person. I'm going to assume they would speak for many of us. If there's one, maybe within a short window, are there any short films you would want to show here or
Yeah.
link to at least? Yeah.
100%.
And obviously, if other folks have questions, per usual, raise your hands or drop in the chat. Well, was there any themes, Chandan or Hardeep? One of you is pulling up any types of films that were but almost well represented. What did you see as a pattern?
Definitely there are horror. Definitely there are anything and everything possible, right? We just had one goal. Every movie, even if it's positive or negative, ended with a positive note. That's one hardcore rule that we had. Hardeep, we planning to show Astitwa?
Yes.
Yeah, you should talk about it.
This is the best overall film that ended up winning. There's some debates around it. Some people thought it wasn't that. Some people liked the film that ended up winning best storytelling and best sound design. It's actually pretty interesting. The people who are like, I think like in the mid 30s or late 30s or older, usually like this film more. I think maybe it matches like the cinematography style of the older days. And like the people who are like in their early 20s and mid 20s ended up liking this film so much more. So I thought that was interesting. But I'll show like the best overall film. And then I think it's just 2 minutes long. And then I've already dropped the link to the website in the chat.
Yeah, let me bump it up again. Someone was asking in the chat.
Let me know if you guys can hear.
All good.
They called it progress, when flesh turned to metal and emotion into code. We built bodies that don't age, hearts that don't break. And somehow, in trying to fix everything, we deleted what made us human. Now, there's only one God, the system. It feeds us, heals us, decides who we are. Governments, they're just mirrors, pretending to rule. Every human is a product, upgraded, efficient, replaceable. I was built to obey, to feel nothing, just like everyone, until one day, she looked at me and everything broke.
Why do humans cry when they are happy? You still can, right? Feel.
I don't know. Do we need to feel?
Yes, it's the most beautiful thing that you people added to us way back. For you, it was burdens and limit, a flaw you tried to erase, but that's what made you feel alive. How do you like to feel? A touch. A care. I can help you. I don't have much time, but you do. It will make you mortal, but it's worth it.
She was just code. But in her silence, I heard everything we'd forgotten. Maybe that's all existence ever wanted. to be felt again. Can you feel it?
Yeah, John has a hand up.
Yeah, go ahead, John.
Oh, hi. Because I run a film festival too. My question is more on the mechanics of how you are scaling your judging of all the entries and still being fair to the filmmakers, because algorithmic judging on the one hand, yeah, for IP violations, is it AI or something? That's actually getting workable. But for example, I went through one of those classic periods where, yeah, I watched 100 films over 3 days, and I can guarantee you I felt awful at certain points that I can't be fair to this person because I'm being a human. I'm watching their film that's 73 in the queue. So my question, especially as these festivals start getting literally thousands of entries, is how you do your judging in a way that is fair to the submitter, but also scales from the organization point of view. Thank you. It's a problem I'm wrestling right now.
Yeah, so the way we did this was because this wasn't only just like a film festival, it was a hackathon at its core where people submitted like their portfolios, and then we'd look at a bunch of their applications, and then we'd let them in, and then they'd make their films. First, we had like about 3,700 individuals submit their applications, out of which we end up selecting 50. To select these people, we really had a group of people that we trusted who had good quote unquote taste in design and filmmaking, and look at their portfolio, look at their videos. Then we selected like about a group of 300 people or so. Then we had like calls with every single person, trying to like just see how their creative process is, like how they think. That's probably not scalable because the calls took a long time. But after the calls, we ended up selecting these 50 people, sending them invitations. These 50 people came to the venue. They stayed at this hotel that we gave them for 3 days. And while they were staying there, they made these films. They had a group of great mentors that we gave them, who were people who'd been making AI films for a very long time. I guess that as long as you can get in this industry is 10 years, not too long. But yeah, just great storytellers. And then after these people made the films they made, we had them submit them to us. And then we did none of the judging. We had their films, and then we streamed them. And then we gave the judges who we had picked, who had been these industry veterans, do the judging in a green room after all the screening were done, and then choose on the winners. But to add on, something we learned was that while having these experienced storytellers was like really amazing, and they were great at the discussions around these films, we also realized like many of the people we ended up picking judges were like people who were like really like the veterans in the industry. So they were much older and they had almost like a different taste. And I think for the next time, we also want to have people who are younger, who might not be just film folks, but also people who might not be directors, but people who might be like
Little
professional
well with the AI industry is something that felt missing.
Yeah, like professional YouTubers, folks who like create videos in a different sorts of way in the industry. So I think that's something we learned for sure.
All right. Thank you.
It's super interesting. Like it is still the human layer of what someone expects out of a film fest. That in spite of the automation tools, that we presume someone's at least doing a job to help us know which things to look at. Super interesting. I'm curious about actually, Min has a question. Go ahead.
Min, yeah.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, where do you see it going next? Like from your guys' perspective, after the event and the people that you've been talking to, do you think do you think Bollywood is eventually going to embrace it? I feel like is there an opportunity for Bollywood to kind of leapfrog Hollywood in its sluggishness, or is it also going to be sluggish?
No, 100%. There are definite collides to be moved. And after the event is when we happen to realize that a lot of them are actually thinking about it. one of the things that happened, as Hardeep mentioned, is the participants who are in fact the winners of the teams, the finalists, have got chance to work with Netflix or the industry legends. Plus, at the same time, there are also the current running Bollywood film studios who wanted to acquire or bring these people in to work on films together. And in fact, this morning we happened to have a conversation with a multi-billion-dollar distribution/production company in India and internationally. These guys are soon planning to launch a platform which is an equivalent to Sora, but made on films. Like you can literally replace a gladiator to your friend's face, or like to that level. So that's what they're getting into. It does make us feel and realize or think about that, oh, there's a lot of change that's coming. We're glad to be a part of being one of so many other sparks that are leading to make this change happen. Yeah.
Awesome. Sorry, Fred.
Then, so there is one funny story. Hardeep,
Yeah.
do you think we can talk about the Red Bull story publicly?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's anyone from Red Bull here in the call. So there's a story of how Red Bull sponsored us 500 cans, the standard Red Bull, the drink, right? So their ask was only just one thing. Hey, do send us the pictures of people drinking and then in a commute, they're trying the product out. But out of 100 other things, we happen to forget to tell the media team to click pictures dedicatedly showing the product. Moral of the story, the event is over, but we have 0 pictures of the product, like people drinking or holding the cans, etc. You know what we've done? We've got the winners of the AI Film Festival to generate cans in people's hands. And that's
Genius. Great.
not the job.
Replacing the flaws of humans step by step. You didn't represent Red Bull well enough. And I think you alluded to this before, but when you think about your expansion efforts, Hardeep, the idea of taking the event outside of Mumbai, is that also a way to expand? Obviously, it's going to be the filmmakers from Mumbai that are then showcased, or would that include like folks in France at the local France one? How is that a represented filmmaker moment?
Yeah, so I feel like we do want to have the local populations at each of these places.
Okay, so it'd be like local. So I'm like, got it.
Yeah,
I thought it was a
but
way to export more Mumbai filmmakers. Sorry, I misread that.
no, all good. And
Super interesting. Again, I think just the thing that stuck out so much was just that signal moment in the locality of India. I mean, it's such a big part of the story and the technology story, how much talent there is. And again, I think it's that sort of even playing field that everybody keeps talking about is emerging with the space. I think all of us even felt it watching the movie you shared. If others have questions, I also wouldn't mind seeing supposedly the movie that older people liked, just to see if we could really get divisive here and separate people at least by generations.
sounds, yeah, more than happy to share.
Laura had a quick question. With LocalHost, do you plan to build software or remain an accelerator style incubator for AI filmmakers? You can see it in the chat.
So I think we're gonna, like, for the moment, being early on, we're gonna keep doing these accelerator style, keep being the accelerator style for AI filmmakers. Like there's just 2 companies that we're partnering with whom we'll be investing into AI filmmakers. So like funding their films, funding their incomes to just like work on their films. So these would be like $10,000 to $20,000 grants given to these people in exchange that the production companies will be funding this, would be able to own the rights and stream the movies online. And these would be short films of 2 minutes long and so forth. So we're definitely doing that for the moment being. As per software, we're definitely exploring it. I actually have a software engineer I've been working with over the past month, trying to see like how we can automate even some of the editing that goes into AI filmmaking. Like right now, I live in San Francisco, so there's so many tools always coming out to automate software engineering coding. And these tools keep becoming like multi-billion-dollar companies in just like a span of 1.5 year, which is absolutely wild. We have never seen something like that before, but there doesn't exist something like that for video editing right now, where you can write prompts and edit videos and have a timeline of Premiere Pro, Final Cut Pro be modified using just like automations. So I think we really want to venture that into eventually as well, but taking one step at a time, of course.
And one thing to add up is that in these events that we are organizing, we're not looking at only AI film as a discipline, right? We're definitely looking at the best of this generation, of this time being, whoever is existing. Best of the research, best of artists, best of storytellers, everything combined together. Or builders, is the building films, building startups, etc. So we have a plan to organize an event at the Palace of Versailles in France. Literally, the epicenter of French Revolution is where we want to organize a demo day where we honor the best of this generation. Like we're planning to make this happen around August, almost at the second half of this year, of the upcoming year. Yeah.
Amazing. Interesting ambition to think about the locality that way. I'm sure some of the folks in France have good or interesting feelings about that. Oscar, you had a question.
Yeah, some of that language really, with the thought of like the Goliaths that you mentioned, like that need bringing down, and the framing of revolutionary context of the Palace of Versailles makes me want to ask about this. This thought about revolutionary technologies, right? So of course, machine cinema, a lot of people, you will have found yourself in this phrase, oh, it's revolution. And I think it's worth taking a moment to look at that. And I'd love to get your thoughts about this, because you're in a world in SF that's very much about what's the next revolution? How does this revolve so that the next thing that's going to be on top gets to be on top? And the Goliath is the thing that's currently on top, and what are we bringing in next, right? And the thing about revolutions, the history of revolutions tends to be that the thing that ends up on top shortly thereafterwards is the new tyrant. We've had an old tyrant, then we get a new tyrant. And this happens in both technological and political and other contexts. And I have this great interest that I wanted to frame in this way and then see how you would react to it in resolutionary technologies. Technologies that instead of creating a new type of conflict between a new way of doing a thing and an old way of doing a thing, instead resolve conflicts that we have had between each other, resolve the troubles that we are solving using each new revolution in different ways. But instead, what if we can resolve them all together?
The American resolution instead of the American revolution.
I'm interested I am a resolutionary. The status quo is made of conflict. If you go into revolution with that, you make conflict with conflict. But I consider myself a resolutionary. My question to you is, how do you see using these approaches to resolve our problems?
In that Hardeep and Shonda, yeah.
Yeah, can you repeat like the last line? How do we see?
So there's a revolutionary framing you've been using, which is understandable in the technological business context. Do you see that a resolutionary move could be made with any of what you're doing, and what that might look like? For example, when you say we're taking down Goliaths in order to let there be many Davids, like in order to let anybody do anything, what's the next bit? What's the bit what's your hope other than, cool, now we're in charge, like we're running the big new thing that's big and on top of everybody? What's the next bit? And what is your optimism about that? I love that you asked your filmmakers to end on optimistic notes. What is your optimistic note about where all this is headed?
No, one thing me and Hardeep, everyone from the team are very certain about is we do not want to pull down any Goliath. Like Goliaths are Goliath because they've done something incredibly amazing over the last few years, right? So one thing is we want to make them, like, shake them and then say that, you know what, there's this new thing on the block coming, AI, you got to use it because there is a whole new set of possibilities open. When there is an entirely new playing ground that is open, which also leaves like a space for a lot of new and early adopters to jump in, have a equal playing field. So that's one hope where we have the idea that we are democratizing the bar for storytelling. Hardeep, you can take it from there.
Yeah, I think our entire idea is, I think with AI filmmaking, what's going to happen, our hope is that it's just going to, it's going to democratize the whole era, like the area of filmmaking. Anyone be able to make a film, they'd be able to make a video. And I think instead of it, like some people are very worried about that it's going to end up creating a lot of AI slop. And there's just going to be like lots of low quality content in the industry. Our idea is that we don't think that's going to happen. I feel like with AI, because high quality visuals are going to be allowed to be made much more easily, the bar of filmmaking is going to be pushed higher than being taken down. And our idea is that with these big production studios that exist at Goliaths, I think they will be taken down if they don't adapt to it. But I think if they are able to adapt to it, like how A24 has A24 labs now, and I have a couple of friends who are literally using AI tools for A24, is that I feel like if production houses keep like trying to explore these tools, keep trying to see how they can make their systems more efficient, they might stay at the top and still just keep using the best technologies of the day. For example, Google started as a search engine. It never intended to be like releasing Gemini or anything like that. But when the AI revolution started happening and these AI research papers started to spill around the 2014 era, Google started investing a bunch of money in AI, and now it's released Gemini 3 and everyone's loving Gemini 3, everyone's loving BO3. So we see this going like that, but for the film production houses.
I see Adam has a question. He's been patiently waiting.
Yeah, so I guess this is a question. I think it's a mixture for Oscar and all of you guys, and I think it's piggybacking on what Oscar was asking, which is this idea of I think it's organization of storytelling in theory, but basically without actually figuring out the economics of the future places look like. I think we basically end up with capture from governmental and monetary people with wealth basically still having control over the marketplace if people can't actually sufficiently pay their bills outside of that control. And so for me, I've been thinking extensively about how do we actually create marketplaces of a future that aren't dependent on both the attention economy or the advertising economy directly in the same way that they have in the past. Because if we don't do that, we're still, all artists around the world are still in the pockets of deep investors and basically trying to steal people's attention and or advertising as a method of communication. And I think it's not being revolutionary unless we actually solve that. So I wanted to offer and what your thoughts are on what a new system might look like.
I'm getting taken away from here to scout for a film as it happens in about 9 minutes. So I'm going to go first and say, this is the content problem. Is how I frame this. Some time ago, we stopped saying film, art, movie, video, and we started saying content. And the thing about that word is it smuggles in one of the most sort of terrifying shifts that elucidates what you're describing. Because the reason we use the word content is the important thing is container. That our job as people who make stuff becomes keep everyone looking at the container, keep them looking at Netflix, keep them looking at YouTube, and whatever it takes to keep them looking, do more of that. And then if you've got lots of people making stuff, the stuff that will be surfaced will be the stuff that keeps people looking. Turns out rage bait, a bunch of other things that we know can be very damaging. And it's all innocently just like serving people what they need. So as soon as you're in the container story, as soon as you're doing container, and this is interesting in the context of film festivals. I used to work for one of the big ones, Raindance in London. And the same thing happens. And the question about curation and judging is key again, is who gets to judge and what happens? Why does their taste run the show? Are most members of AMPES still white old men? Yes, they are. That's still what's happening. So I think that question, what's the revolutionary way of thinking about this, is like, I was wondering earlier on, what does a peer-to-peer film festival look like? What does it look like when a film festival doesn't have an MD exactly, but that somehow everyone sort of auto-poetically clusters, shows each other their stuff, goes, oh, that's cool, I'm learning things, let's connect, let's make things, let's move into a house together and make a thing for it. That, to me, looks like a revolutionary behavior. And it's very different, basically, from mass broadcast in general. And yeah, how we get there, it's a broccoli question for me. How do you grow a fractal? Good question.
Super interesting response. I know you have to go, and I think most of us will have to go in about 5 minutes. And I think Kevin's even saying, wow, we're just getting started. That's a good sign. And it's also, maybe we should do part 2. Adam, I think you're interestingly dovetailing off of Oscar's. I've never heard that term of being a resolutionary. That's good. That's clever.
I'm in. I love it.
But it is interesting. And I don't know, I think even in the very wide range of ages and experiences that our community often has, it's exciting to see the young energy, seeing that. Interesting what you just said, that there's 2 films, one just resonated with some age range and the other one, so it's interesting where the points of view are landing. And I think you answered it really well, Hardeep and Chandan, of what is your intentions when you talk about even the notion of Goliaths and Davids. But there is a collision happening. And if Oscar's pulling the right chapter of history, there are patterns from revolutions in terms of what happens next. It's very interesting to think about what problem can we solve versus what power can we usurp. It's very interesting. And I think, Adam, your question goes straight to it of, wait, maybe instead of about who's in charge, it's about maybe which things should we fix? And a big one is what represents people here, like creators feeling like what they do is worth something and has stability behind it and has a job and a career in a way that it, whether we like the way Hollywood did it or not, Hollywood did create a system that worked in its way, that a lot of people did get jobs and paid mortgages. So now we're in a process of watching that unravel on its own terms. It's like Hollywood just is not a victim of AI, it's a victim of itself for why that's not working so well anymore.
And I think that's an incredible question, like a lot of thought to give it. Yeah. I think that will come with an answer. Me and Hardeep will discuss about that for a while. Yeah.
That I see you too. If you, since you're already creating community to create creation, which also machine cinema does, you're in that place where you're like, oh, we could become the tyrants who people are like trying to get to know at events so that maybe they're in our thing and then maybe they're important, maybe they win. But you also have an interest in, it's like, why does it have to be a competition actually? Why have we been doing that for all this time? I noticed you had a picture with Sam Altman on your Twitter there. At Burning Man, I bump into Sam and I'm like, it was this sort of a brief moment and I go, Sam, it seems to me that civilization, all 15,000 years of it, might be understood as an immune response to the problem of life-threatening scarcity, where we fight over what's available. That is in a very interesting new stage in its change now, in its process of change now, because we solved the problem in principle of life-threatening scarcity. We just haven't solved the problem in practice of coordinating the consequences of that. And so we're still used to fighting over everything because that's what we've been doing for this whole time. But what if we didn't do that anymore? And maybe the internet could help, maybe AI could even help. He gave me his phone number and we would text sometimes. So that gives me a little bit of hope. But yeah, you have to do hope. I think hope is an action, just like love is an action. And I feel optimism around crowds like this, that maybe we can be doing it and see what happens.
Yeah, optimistic as well. And sorry, go ahead.
No, please respond. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you. Apologies.
No, I was just saying, yeah, definitely optimistic about the space. And Sam's awesome. He's just so open to talk to always. So I really love his energy whenever we chat.
I love that we've ended today on 2 effective humble brags that everybody's just hanging out with Sam Altman. But look, we went a little bit over, and I always book this at 11:30 just in case we go over. So good that we also retained a great crowd. Seems like part 2 of some kind is interested for 2026. Min, since you're still here, there was one question that was asking us about what's coming up. I think, Seth, you're asking specifically about this event this weekend here in LA. For anybody that's here, we're trying something a little bit different. We're doing like a sort of a jam during the day where we just kind of get people to make stuff. And then we're going to invite people to do like a gin and juice moment, which is to show up and see what we made. So it's a bit of an experimental format that we're playing with, but it's going to be at an XR kind of stage here in LA. So we're going to have a lot of different toys to play with. So it's very experimental, and hopefully the people that are coming are going to enjoy it. But Min, even just to respond to the visions for the coming years, we drum the beat of what we're trying to build. What would you say?
I think we're going to take a pause in our season 2 this year. Like we organized over 130 events this year, which is crazy, in-person events. We did only 17 last year. I'm not traveling, so we want to take a pause this year and focus on what we're going to do in big and interesting ways next year. Does that look like festivals? Does that look like a bigger event that we want to do? Does it look like, how do we support the members more and even change the way that we're doing Gen Talks as well? I think it's a lot of different things. I think Fred is going to get a new hat, which is an important factor. He gets like 20 hats per year. And yeah,
I have a decent head of hair. I'm not hiding anything, guys. It's just, I don't comb myself effectively.
Whether or not you're hiding something is a whole Gen Talk conversation. But yeah, and then we also have things with Schnazo. We want to do some merch stuff. We want to do a lot of things. I'll write an update about all this and also retrospective on season 2. But yeah, I don't know if that's what you wanted me to talk about, Fred, but it's been a lot. A lot of big plans and a lot of kind of existential, introspective work that we have to do about the last year. But yeah, thanks everybody.
I think Adam, you had maybe a follow-up question or response. Your hand was up.
I wasn't necessarily. I have much more I'd want to talk about Oscar and all you guys. Are you guys in San Francisco? Hardeep and Chandan as well? Or are you guys all in Mumbai?
Hardeep currently in San Francisco, and I'll be there in probably a month.
Awesome. Hopefully I'll meet you there. Amazing. We've got a Gen Jam on Saturday, actually, that I'm putting on.
Oh, nice. Yeah, if someone's in San Francisco, I'll be in LA soon as well. I would love to have you meet around with people as well. Especially, I don't know many people in LA, so I'd love to see people here done.
Thanks everybody for showing up.
Awesome.
Oscar, thank you. I know you have to run to your location scout, but thanks everybody. Hope everybody's
guys.
December's off to a good start, and those Black Friday sales are crushing all the video generation credits you're going to spend. But thanks everybody.
I have a hat to offer you. What do you think? Do you think this would be good?
Oh my God. Why does that fit you so well, Oscar? It's kind of crazy, actually.
Because my head can fly, but it's the only part.
All right. On that note, see you guys later. Bye.
See you. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Fred, thank you so much, man. Appreciate this. Yeah.
Thank you guys. Appreciate you.
Yeah, that was fun. Catch you later.